Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're deconstructing one of the most famous special ops missions in history. But we're not just going to recap what happened. We're going to pull out a powerful framework for how to perform when everything, and I mean everything, goes wrong.
All right, let's dive right in by starting at the exact moment a perfect plan just completely fell apart. It's May 2nd, 2011. SEAL Team 6 is arriving at Osama bin Laden's compound, and their elegant, carefully rehearsed plan is about to smack right into cold, hard reality.
I mean, look at this. Within 30 seconds of getting there, the mission should have been a total disaster. The lead helicopter, Chalk 1, hits this wild aerodynamic thing called a vortex ring state. Basically, its own rotor wash got trapped by the compound's high walls, creating a column of dead air that just stole all the helicopter's lift. The plan was dead before they even hit the ground.
So this brings up the critical question, right? How does a team not only recover from what should have been a mission-ending catastrophe, but then go on to nail their objective perfectly in under 40 minutes? The answer isn't about having a better plan B. It's about what you do when your plan is suddenly completely worthless.
And the difference between what they planned for and what they got was just stark. They trained for a chain-link fence that would let air pass through. What they found were solid concrete walls. They planned this clean, two-pronged assault from the roof and the ground. Instead, they were thrown into a messy, improvised fight from the ground up.
You know, the pilot's skill was absolutely incredible. He prevented a total catastrophe, somehow landing that helicopter with just inches to spare. As SEAL Mark Owen put it, that single act of brilliance saved all their lives. But it was the team's shared mental toolkit that would make the mission a success.
And this gets us to a really crucial idea, because once that plan was shattered, the real enemy appeared. And it wasn't bin Laden, and it wasn't the helicopter failing. No, it was a much more subtle, much more dangerous opponent that every single one of us faces when the pressure is on. And that enemy is called the rigidity trap. See, it's a huge distinction. It's not the chaos that defeats elite teams. It's an inflexible response to that chaos. The mission worked because the SEALs didn't freeze. They didn't try to force their broken plan to work. They just immediately adapted to the new reality they were in.
Mark Owen described their whole philosophy as pick-up basketball. I love that. There are no set plays, no rigid script. It's just a team of experts who know the fundamentals so well that they can improvise together, seamlessly, the second the game plan goes right out the window.
Okay, so how in the world do you build a team that can play pickup basketball under the most extreme pressure you can possibly imagine? Well, it doesn't actually start with the team. It starts with the individual and their ability to completely master their own internal state. And it all begins with a pretty serious reality check. According to research from organizational psychologist Tasha Eurich, there's this massive gap between how self-aware we think we are and how self-aware we actually are. Get this. 95% of us believe we're self-aware, but only about 15% of us truly are, and you just can't control your response to chaos if you don't accurately understand it in the first place. So elite performers, they don't just hope they stay calm. They literally manually override their body's fight-or-flight response. They use very specific, trainable breathing techniques like box breathing or the faster-acting physiological sigh, which, by the way, Stanford research shows is super effective at quickly rebalancing your nervous system.
Think about it. When that helicopter crashed, they weren't panicking about the big picture, about the extraction plan, or the mission timeline. No, they immediately narrowed their focus to what they could control right then and there. They call it their 3-foot world. Get out of the wreck, secure the area, solve the problem that's right in front of your face. That's it.
And what underpins all of this is this deep belief in their own capacity, which is captured in what endurance athlete David Goggins calls the 40% rule. It's this powerful conviction that when your mind is screaming at you that you're done, that you can't go on, you've actually only used about 40% of your true potential.
This mental framework is absolutely critical. So, a fixed mindset sees that helicopter crash as a final verdict, as a threat. We failed. But a growth mindset, which is based on the work of psychologist Carol Dweck, sees it as just data. Okay, the plan is gone. What does this new information tell us we need to do right now?
All right, so if those are the tools for the individual, how do you scale them across an entire team? How do you turn a group of highly disciplined people into a single adaptive organism that actually thrives in chaos? Well, it starts with a process of what you might call radical honesty. The AAR, or After Action Review, is this brutally frank debrief that happens after every single mission.
And this simple process, it hardwires a growth mindset into the team's DNA. It makes sure they systematically learn from every single thing they do, turning setbacks into future strengths.
And this is how they really play that pickup basketball. Leadership isn't about rank, it flows to expertise. The guy who's the expert on breaching leads at the door. The medic leads when someone gets hit. This fluid system, they call it dynamic subordination. It makes sure the best person is always making the critical call at the critical moment.
But what's the glue that holds all this improvisation together? It's a clear, powerful purpose. What the military calls commander's intent. The team's tactics could change from one second to the next, but the core mission, the what and the why, was completely unshakable.
So what's the big takeaway from all this for our own lives? For when we face our own versions of a crashed helicopter, a project that fails, a negotiation that goes south, or just a personal crisis.
The mission succeeded because these operators had a toolkit of specific practice skills. They controlled their bodies, they focused on the very next step, they treated failure as just information, and they never ever lost sight of their purpose. They weren't superhuman, they were just supremely well-trained.
And this right here is the most important point to take away from this whole thing. None of these abilities, from controlling your breath to adopting a growth mindset, none of them are magical traits that people are born with. They are skills. And that means they can be developed by anyone in any field through deliberate, consistent practice.
In the end, elite performance is about mastering your inner state so completely that the extraordinary just becomes manageable. After the raid, Mark Owens stopped at Taco Bell. It's such a jarringly normal end to a historic night, right? But it captures the whole point of this framework. Through practice, you build the internal systems to face down chaos, you execute, and then you just move on to what's next. The real question isn't whether we'll face uncertainty, it's how well we've trained for it.